Well, I thought of you, Danny. I thought of you this week because I went through so many rabbit trails on what I'm going to bring forward that I honestly can't even tell you where the starting point was. And so I have one sentence that I want to deal with. But I want to pour out some of the rabbit trails that I went on to get to that sentence. And so I'm going to throw out a trivia question, and I may have the answer wrong myself. So, how many times did Moses ascend the mountain? That's what I thought. That's what I thought, once or twice, yeah. And so part of the rabbit trail was when I found the scripture that spoke to me, the sentence that, you know, you'll be reading and then a sentence, you read something and it goes, wait a minute, put the brakes on here and think about what you just read. So it caused me to ask, how many times did Moses ascend in Mount Sinai? So a little bit of the background, and I'll give them to you, the 8 that I found. The first one is out of Exodus. You know the story. Moses was ejected out of Egypt and went to the backside of the desert. And in Exodus 3 it says, "Now Moses kept the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian. And he held the flock to the backside of the desert and came to the mountain of God, even to Horeb." Now the mountain of God already had that name when he came to it. So Jethro told him or explained to him that there's a strange fire. The top of that mountain glows sometime with an eerie presence. And so he went to the backside of the desert and came to the mountain of God, even to Horeb. And the angel of the Lord appeared unto him in a flame of fire out of the midst of a bush. And he looked, and behold, the bush burned with fire, and the bush was not consumed. And Moses said, "I will now turn aside and see this great sight, why the bush is not burnt." And when the Lord saw that he turned aside to see, God called unto him out of the midst of the bush and said, "Moses, Moses." And he said, "Here am I." Now I find interesting in that passage, it says, "And when the Lord saw that he turned aside to see." Scripture says, if you draw near to me, I'll draw near to you. And here's this perfect example. The fire is burning and Moses sees it and he makes this determination. I'm going near there. I'm going to go see what that is. And so it is in our life when we turn towards the path that we're leaving, when we leave that path for a little bit to go see. We taste and see that the Lord is good. And so when he turned away, it's when God called unto him. The principle in that scripture, I guess, is that sometimes you just have to turn away from what you're doing. The second time I found, when Moses went up and met with the Lord at the burning bush, he told him, you were going to go, deliver your people, and I will meet you here again at this mountain. And sure enough, in Exodus 19, it says, in the 3rd month came they unto the wilderness of Sinai, and had pitched in the wilderness, and there Israel camped before the mount. And Moses went up unto God, and the Lord called unto him out of the mountain, saying, tell the children of Israel, ye have seen what I did unto the Egyptians, and how I bare you on eagle's wings, and brought you unto myself. Now therefore, if you will obey my voice indeed, and keep my covenant, then you shall be a peculiar treasure unto me, and you shall be unto me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. It's a little bit longer than that. I just condensed it to get the point across. So Moses comes down to address the people and tell them what he just heard and saw. So the 3rd ascent, again, is Exodus 19. And Moses came and he called the elders of the people and laid before their faces all these words which the Lord commanded him. Sometimes I think as I'm getting older, I'm losing my mind, because it becomes harder and harder to remember something. You know, I begin to lose some details somewhere. Oh, geez, I forgot. Oh. But Moses had to carry that down and present it. And he laid before their faces all these words which the Lord commanded him. And all the people answered together and said, all that the Lord had spoken, we will do. And Moses returned the words of the people unto the Lord. And the Lord said to Moses, lo, I come unto thee in a thick cloud, that the people may hear when I speak with thee, and believe thee forever. And Moses told the words of the people unto the Lord. The 4th ascent. And Moses brought forth the people out of the camp, and they stood at the nether part of the mountain. And Mount Sinai was altogether on a smoke, because the Lord descended upon it in fire. And the whole mount quaked greatly. And when the voice of the trumpet sounded long and waxed louder and louder, I forget how high the mountain was, probably 7,000 feet or so. But the presence of God, the cloud is thick. Here's 3 million people at the base of the mountain looking up in fear. The earth is trembling and shaking, and his voice becomes as the sounding of the trumpet. It's huge. It's clear. It goes all across the Sinai Valley. It waxed louder and louder. And Moses spake, and God answered him by a voice. And the Lord came down upon Mount Sinai on the top of the mountain, and the Lord called Moses up to the top of the mount. And Moses went up. And the Lord said unto Moses, go down, charge the people, lest they break through unto the Lord to gaze, and many of them perish. And let the priests also which come near unto the Lord sanctify themselves, lest the Lord break forth upon them. And the Lord said unto him, away, get thee down, and thou shalt come up, thou and Aaron with thee, But let not the priests and the people break through to come up to the mountain, lest he break forth upon them. At this point, God is giving Moses the commandments, not the physical 10 commandments. He's speaking some directives to him. The fifth ascent in Exodus 20. And all the people saw the thunderings and the lightnings and the noise of the trumpet and the mountain smoking. And when the people saw it, they removed and stood afar off. Can't say I hardly blame them. It was a scary thing. And they said unto Moses, Speak thou with us, and we will hear, but let not God speak with us, lest we die. And Moses said unto the people, Fear not, for God is come to prove you. That's not changed. God always comes to prove you. So at any time you think you're being tested, guess what? You get an A. Yeah, you're tested. And Moses said to the people, Fear not, for God is come to prove you, and that his fear may be before your faces, that you sin not. And the people stood far off, and Moses drew near unto the thick darkness where God was. And the Lord said to Moses, Thus thou shalt say to the children of Israel, Ye have seen that I have talked with you from heaven. Now that thought continues on into chapter from 20 to 21, 22, and chapter 23, where he gives the law. He gives the law, and he also gives the laws for the communal living, how the camp is to behave, what they're to do. The sixth time he ascended, and this will be my scripture and thought, but I'll pass on to the 8 times. Exodus 24. And the Lord said to Moses, Come up to me in the mount and be there, and I will give thee tables of stone and a law and commandments which I have written, that thou may teach them. And Moses rose up, and his minister Joshua. And Moses went up to the mount of God. And he said to the elders, Tarry ye here for us until we come again unto you. And behold, Aaron and Hur are with you. If any man have any matters to do, let him come unto them. And Moses went up to the mount, and a cloud covered the mount. And the glory of the Lord abode upon Mount Sinai, and the cloud covered it 6 days. And the 7th day he called out to Moses in the midst of the cloud. And the sight of the glory of the Lord was like devouring fire on the top of the mount in the eyes of the children of Israel. And Moses went into the midst of the cloud and gat him up into the mount. And Moses was in the mount 40 days and 40 nights. The 7th ascending part that I found, Exodus 32. And Moses returned unto God. Moses had gone up. He received the tablets. He comes down out of the mountain, and he sees the backsliding. He saw the golden calf. Wow. They fell back to what they knew. They wanted to worship something. Didn't understand what the new thing was that was going on in front of them. There is a whole astrological teaching having to do with the precession of the equinox. and the change in time. And this is a threshold, a change of time that's going on. And with any change, no matter what, there's a tendency to hang on to what was and not understand what is. And he said unto the elders, tarry here. The seventh one, Exodus 32. And Moses returned unto the Lord and said, Oh, this people have sinned a great sin, and have made them gods of gold. Will suffice to say that that's enough for that scripture, because I'm just touching on his ascensions. And the last one that I found, the eighth one, is in Exodus 34. And the Lord said unto Moses, Hew thee 2 tablets of stone like unto first, and I will write upon these tablets the words that were in the first tablets, which thou breakest. Now he told Moses this, but Moses, I'm sure, didn't do it. He had professional stone cutters. Remember, that's what they were in slavery. They were builders and professional stone cutters. So he probably told 2 to take some helpers, go somewhere in the mountain and find me some righteous stone and cut out these tablets, the same size as the ones that I broke. And he hewed 2 tablets of stone like unto the first, and Moses rose up early in the morning, and he went up to Mount Sinai, as the Lord had commanded him, and took in his hand the 2 tablets of stone. Moses was 40 when he was banished from Egypt. Sure, he spent a few years in Jethro's tent, married one of his daughters, raised some children. That could probably put him around the age of 50. Now he tells him, take these 2 stones, which half the way, and walk up this mountain. Now there's no path on that mountain except maybe what the goats had established. And he's walking in his sandals, and he's got some miles on his unit, and he's carrying these tablets. So he gets up there, and God writes on them, and then he carries them back down. But that's the 8 ascensions that I found. Could be another one lurking in there somewhere, but I didn't see it. But the one that I want was the 6th ascension. It was Exodus 24, 12 through 18. And right now I just want the first sentence. And the Lord said to Moses, come up to me in the mount and be there. Now we're told to be a lot of things. And so I researched a few. Get my words mixed. I researched a few of the be ye's. Genesis says, and you be ye fruitful and multiply. That's fun, right, Trav? Leviticus says, sanctify yourselves therefore and be ye holy. Numbers says, and be ye of good courage and bring of the fruit of the land. 2 Chronicles says, now be ye not stiff-necked as your fathers were, but yield yourself unto the Lord and enter into his sanctuary. Proverbs 8, be ye of an understanding heart. Matthew 10 says, behold, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. Be ye therefore wise as serpents and harmless as doves. Matthew 13. And when ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars, be ye not troubled, for such things must needs be. Luke 12. Be ye therefore ready also, for the Son of Man cometh at an hour when ye think not. Romans 12. And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Ephesians 5, be ye therefore followers of God as dear children. James 1, be ye doers of the word, and not hearers only, deceiving your own selves. And 1 Peter 3, finally, be ye all of one mind, having compassion one of another, love as brethren, be pitiful and be courteous. There were 100 more be ye's. But this scripture that I'm dealing with does not say be ye anything or do ye anything. Exodus 24:12, and the Lord said unto Moses. Now Moses, his name means drawing out, or to pull out, or to rescue. Rescue. Can anybody identify with that? Okay. So he rescued me. So maybe I better pay attention to what he's saying here, because now I'm part of that deal. And the Lord said unto Moses, come up to me in the mount. That word come up, the root word means to ascend. Anytime you're approaching God, you are ascending from another level of where you are. You are attempting to reach for something higher. You are attempting to better your life, to learn something, to extend yourself. Come up to me in the mountain and be there. The word be is a primitive root word. It means to exist. So something happens there. God didn't tell him to do anything. He said, come up and be. How many times have you had the opportunity to feel a sensing of the call of the Lord and just go somewhere and be? Be means exist without any other influence. I'm going to tell you the thief and the robber of today's lifestyle. Cell phones, iPads, Facebook. Can you be without that? I'm telling you, it happens in the midst of the services. one of the be ye's, the last one I read, 1 Peter 3:8, finally, brethren, be ye all of one mind. We are here, but we're not necessarily all of one mind. We are so easily sidetracked, and we're easily sidetracked to the point that it steals something important that we should be hearing or doing or taking part in. The Lord said to Moses, you that have been rescued, come up, get a little higher unto me, and be. Then he says, and I will give thee tablets of stone, and a law, and commandments which I have written. I like this part. That thou mayest teach them. That's all one word in the Hebrew. That thou mayest teach them. And that one word is a root word, and it means to flow like water. We stumble and struggle for words sometime and can't get our point across, or can't struggle for the right words to say to somebody. He said, come and be with me, and I will teach you that you can flow like water. Figuratively, it means to point out, as aiming the finger or as teaching. But the ability to take a word, a song, a word in due season, and flow with it like water is a gift. And Moses rose up and his minister Joshua. And Moses went up into the mount of God. And he said unto the elders, tarry ye here for us until we come again unto you. There's a principle. When you're rescued, when you're called, when you come into his presence, when you're sensitive to what's going on, it doesn't even have to be a word or a teaching. We talked about it in Sunday school today, about the sense of feeling. Tammy talked about, because of her deafness, the music sometimes she feels more than she hears. And we could all use a dose of that. But I see a principle. Moses rose up and he went to the mountain of God. So he left the congregation. Not for good, but he left the congregation. And the 70 elders, Joshua and the 70 elders, came with him to a point. He told them, wait here while I ascend. Sometime you have to separate from the congregation. Not as in, I'm going and I'm not coming to church next week. I mean, you have to go to a place in your spirit. And it made me think of Kelly Varner. He left the nation, the denomination, and the imagination. When God rescues you and calls you up into a higher place and you go, you have to tarry. You have to wait, and you can't be sidetracked. You can't take your cell phone with you. You can't take Facebook with you. You can't take all of that garbage with you because it robs from your hearing. But the second thing he had to do was he had to tell the elders to wait. Not only did he have to separate from the denomination and your imagination, because you know what? The things that we believe not necessarily are good for us or true. We are so easily led to believe the deception of the evil one, who is always right in the midst, trying to play the accuser of the brethren. But he also had to leave the elders behind. And I thought, what do the elders mean? Well, they're the strength and stability and the oversight of the congregation or the nation. And sometimes you have to reach beyond all of that stuff. You have to step past the safety of what you learned to go into another dimension. And he rose up early and went up into the mount of God, and he said to the elders, "Tarry ye here for us until we come again unto you, and behold, Aaron and Hur are with you." Aaron means the light bringer, and Hur, the grandfather of Bezalel, the chief artificer of the tabernacle, means white linen. So he turns and he says to the elders, to the strength of the body, wait here, because purity and understanding are with you. Purity and guidance, the light bearer, are with you. You'll be able to deal with it. And he says, if any man have any matter to do, let him come to them. See, the next principle is God will provide. And Moses went up into the mount, and a cloud covered the mount. And the glory of the Lord abode upon Mount Sinai. And the cloud covered it 6 days. And the seventh day he called Moses out of the midst of the cloud. 6 days, we know 6 is the number of man and 7 the number of spiritual perfection. But Moses had to go up and be before God for 6 days and 6 nights. It just speaks to me about a separation unto God that in this day and age, in our busyness and activity and our desires, God forbid our desires. I want to do this and I want to do that and I got to go here and I got to go there. Not that you really have to, but we say in our mind, I got to do this. No. Half of it means nothing. And the cloud covered it 6 days, and on the seventh day he called unto Moses out of the midst of the cloud. And the sight of the cloud of glory of the Lord was like devouring fire on the top of the mount in the eyes of the children of Israel. And Moses went into the midst of the cloud and gat him up into the mount. And Moses was in the mount 40 days and 40 nights. Where have we heard that before? 40 days and 40 nights. That was the reign of the great flood. 40 being the number of trial and testing. Double witnessed, morning and evening. So what did I just say? Well, you're rescued. That makes you automatically called to a higher place. Scripture says, be still and know that I am God. How many times is it that we can't be still and have to make a decision on something, right or wrong? Another scripture says, judge no matter before it's time, but when the Lord shows up, he'll reveal the thoughts and the intents of a man. Just be. I found that God will not only give, but God will supply whatever need may be. I found that you have to leave your imagination behind. I found that God will provide in your absence. The mountain was covered by the cloud. God provides a covering. He'll cover you when you step out and reach for him. 6 days Moses waited. The fullness of man. God, teach us patience and give us the ability to know when to speak and when not to speak. And the sensitivity to hear that still small voice. And then the last thought of 40 days and 40 nights, trials and testings for purpose, for refinement, for being used by the Maker. With that, I am finished. God bless. Have a great weekend. See you Thursday.